Greetings and welcome to another edition of the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, anywhere on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, enlightenment, and elevation. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, Rashid. Thank you all for giving me another hour of your day and another day of your time, because as you all know, time is the most valuable and most precious commodity, because once it's spent and used up, you can never get it back. So you make sure that when you spend your time, you get an equal or greater value in return. And I am so delighted that you have given me the time, your time. And I hope that in this time that you have allotted to us on this platform, that you receive an equal or greater value for your time. And I'd like to give a shout out to a lot of people that support me behind the closed doors. I'd like to give a shout out to my son, Khalif, who does all of the technical work, all of the graphics, all of that stuff. I'd like to give a shout out to my wife, Nicole. Strong, baby. Like to give a shout out to my mom, my brothers, my sisters, my children, my nieces, my nephews, and friends and family. And I also want to give a shout out to the Red Pill family. Always in the chat. If they miss an episode, always catching up on it, always trying to beat the algorithm, and always helping the platform. Thank you so much, channel members, patrons, those who have signed up on locals, which we're going to start doing some this year. A lot of stuff on there. And Twitter, thank you so much. Now, the show is titled Friday Night Live News. So you know we got to get into it. But first, let me see if I can pull up my chat on YouTube. Shout out to my guy, Mehdi. Mehdi's in the building. Shout out to Joel. Joel, thank you for joining me, my brother. Thank you. So let's get into this. I want to talk about a lot of things, and you got to ignore the chair as the chair is screeching a little bit. As I told you guys, my children, they get it and they spin around and push each other and spin around, but it's okay. The chair is made to be sat in, and I'm sitting in it right now. So let's go into this. I want to talk to you about a few things that are going on right now, okay? Let me go to RT. The reason I was adamant about trying to do a show today, a live show for all viewers, is because there's so much news out there, so much information, some good, some bad. And the more I read the news, the more it makes me sick, because of the way that these organizations, these platforms, they disseminate news to you. You know, it's one thing to have a perspective. It's another thing to have an agenda. So full disclosure, my agenda is to get as many people as possible to understand what is actually going on, to study, to start applying that age-old law to treat one as one would like to be treated. And so I would like to be informed. I would like to be respected, and so therefore I'm going to try to do my best to civilize, uplift, and respect and enlighten each and every one of you who view this platform, okay? It's amazing. It's just amazing what is going on. I was looking at an article. The United States itself is so outrageous in its reporting. And it has come to the point that these so-called respectable think tanks and these respectable publications are all in league with the mainstream media, And I mean, let me just pull up something real quick. I just have to pull this up. Just Newsweek itself, supposed to be a reputable and respected publication. After Russia launched a barrage of missiles and drone strikes across Ukraine and leveled Ukrainian camps and armament centers and NATO centers, instead of reporting on that, Newsweek reports this. Listen to this. And I'm not going to go to the article. I'm just going to read to you the headline. Okay. Instead of reporting that NATO personnel could have been killed or have been killed. And instead of reporting that Zelensky, the top general of Ukraine, one of his right-hand men is reported to be killed in one of the massive strikes. And instead of reporting the loss of massive life in Ukraine by these drone and missile strikes, the West puts their hands to their ears, over their eyes, and over their mouths, and they won't mention anything that shows Russia advancing and Russia beating the United States, NATO, and Ukraine. And as I said, Newsweek puts an article out with a title this: Ukraine destroyed Su-34 combat jet on airfield deep inside Russia, according to Kiev, right? They didn't report all of the Eastern reporting about the massive destruction that was let loose across Ukraine by Russia's bombardment through missiles and drone strikes, which leveled everything from repair shops to ammunition dumps to NATO underground bunkers to training facilities. They did not mention that. They went ahead with a story like this and going off of Kiev. Now, listen to me good, because I hear a lot of Western pundits, and they have, I would say, some good at heart when they're talking. Right? These people who talk on geopolitics and economics and stuff, and they'll say that Britain and the United States have reported X, Y, and Z, and then they'll say, because they're getting their reporting, their information from Kiev. Listen, that's passing the buck. Again, everybody, listen to me good. I don't know how many times I have to say this, but I will continue to emphasize this. Zelensky does not call the shots. Zelensky does not call the shots. Washington, D.C. and London calls the shots. That's why you have a top U.S. general in Kiev. That's why you have NATO personnel in Kiev. That's why you have British personnel in Kiev and embedded with the intelligence organizations, with the political elite, and all across in the military across Ukraine. So, yes, it may have been reported out of Kiev, but they don't tell you it came from Western sources. Right? So they're not outright lying to you. They're just misrepresenting the truth. You see? But both can do the same or greater damage. Because if I continue to tell you that Zelensky and Zelensky are feeding the West intelligence, and the West is reporting on it, let's just give a little credence to that, okay? If that is the case, then why do you accredit journalists? Anybody can say anything, anybody. So if a drunk man goes to the Washington Post and says, hey, I saw aliens dig holes in my backyard, is that something that the Washington Post would just immediately start writing on, or the New York Times, right? They would immediately, if they felt that there was some truth in it, they would investigate it, right? So even if Ukraine was feeding the West this, and the West published it, and they did not do their due diligence, who does this fall on? Does it fall on Ukraine, or does it fall on the West? See, a lot of the alternative media, as they lay blame at the foot of the West for the crisis, they also try to boomerang it back as Zelensky and Zelensky and Kiev being the problem. When we know that if it was not for the armament, the funding, the training, and the political backing of America, Britain, and NATO, there would be no conflict in Ukraine. This is not hard to digest. I'm sorry, I hit the camera, made it shake a little bit. I'm sorry, everybody. But you understand what I'm saying? They want to pass. They want to pass the buck. Incognito is in the building. Thank you for joining me. So again, Medi says salute to the wife, the son, and the whole family who is behind this good man. Thank you so much, Medi. Man, let me see something real quick. Let me see if I can highlight something real quick. Give me 1 second. Yeah, let me highlight this. So again, they want to play on your intelligence. They do. They really believe that you're ignorant enough to believe this. And what kills me a lot of the time is that some of the most respected channels ease that into their reporting, ease that into their conversation. When in reality, just the average person, if they did their due diligence, either way it falls on the foot of the West. Zelensky is a puppet. Zelensky is a puppet. I want to ask a question that I've often asked, okay? And I want you to answer honestly. For those of you who are watching and those who will watch later. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe, because the platform has been unsubscribing people on YouTube, on both this channel and the backup channel. Shout out to my people over at Rumble and Odyssey and Twitter. Thank you so much. But look, let me ask you a question. And this is a real question. This is not a softball question. This is not about foolishness. This is a direct question to you to get a direct answer, a legitimate, honest answer from you, okay? When in the history of American empire, I want you to listen to me closely. When in the history of American empire that America has fully or almost fully funded a government, placed into power the leadership of the government, giving them the financial wherewithal, the political backing, and the military wherewithal to be a leadership or a government, and then allowed them to act fully outside the scope of American dominance? I'm asking you this because if this is that easy for me to see, learn people, whether they be lawyers or prognosticators or journalists or whatever, they should see that too. They should be able to tell you too. Okay. When has this ever happened? And if it has never happened, or you can recall only one or two occasions or no occasions at all, then what makes it different with Zelensky and Zelensky? And why would you say that Zelensky is this? See, because they understand this. Listen, they are crafting a narrative that when this thing falls, and it is falling, that Zelensky was stubborn and pig-headed. We lost the bulk of our troops in Bakhmut because Zelensky wanted to do that. Or we lost a huge amount of our troops because Zelensky wanted to fight this counteroffensive. You see? So when all is said and done, they will push a lot of the burden and a lot of the blame off of the West, who initiated and then continue to stoke the embers of that were smoldering and turn it into a 5-alarm fire on Russia's border. They'll push themselves back and say, hey, we did the best that we could. We did not do that. He did that. If they would have listened, they've already started doing that. We've given them all of the weapons they've asked for and on time. We've given them intelligence. We've done this and we've done that. They refuse to do this and they refuse to do that. Again, it goes back to that question I asked you. When has the American empire ever wholly or mostly funded a nation with finance, political cover, military wherewithal, and installed those leaders and then allowed them to ignore the demands and wishes of the elite of America? Show me an instance. And if you can't point to one, or there are few in between, then we should have a clearer picture of who is calling the shots over there and why they are trying to pass the blame to Zelensky and Zelensky. Okay? What did Incognito? Let me go back. Let me see something he said. Oh, yeah. Incognito says this right here. He says, if the aliens, I was talking about aliens a few minutes ago. If the aliens digging in the backyard fit the narrative, run with it. Absolutely. So, again, let me go up to something. Maddie has just raised a question that I've been saying. As a matter of fact, I brought this up on a premium stream yesterday. On a channel member stream yesterday, and I went into this. It's a 3-part video, but only 2 parts will be released for the channel members, and all 3 will be over on Patreon. Okay, but listen, and it's a real good in-depth stream. Okay, 3 parts. I think each one of them is like 25 minutes, 24 minutes a piece, or whatever. But Maddie brings up a point that I addressed on there. Listen to this. I want you to look at this. No one is asking the Biden administration if any U.S. active duty service members been killed in Ukraine since 2/22/22. Why? You remember what I told you guys on the last live stream? When these people are killed, all of a sudden there's a plane crash or a lost vessel or some kind of mishap on American soil or on NATO soil. That is to cover up the deaths of those people. And they do it over and over. And also, let's check this out to show you how much contempt they have for the people who serve in the armed forces, claiming to be they claim that they bagged them and that they are patriots for bagging the soldiers and the airmen and the Navy and the Marines and whatever. But listen to this. When they do that and they hide the death and say it was in a training mission, guess what? The family cannot get compensated in the proper way. They don't get combat pay. They don't get that other stuff. So it is not only a smack in the face to lying to the people, but it is a smack in the face to the person that's lost their life following the orders of these lunatics. And then it is a spit in the face of the bereaved ones who have lost their loved ones. Think about that. I want you to just think about that. Maddie brings up a good point, a great point. As a matter of fact, that's a mic drop point. Boom, a mic drop moment. I continue to tell you that these senators, these congressmen, they are patriotic when they are in front of the cameras. They can't find any money to up the retirement pay. They can't find any money to help the disabled who fought in those wars or who may have become disabled while being in the military. They can't up that. But they can always appropriate money for war. Always. And think about this. In a time that they're doing this, America is under the greatest debt burden that any nation in the history of nations has ever been under. She is the greatest debtor nation in the history of the world. I'm going to say that one again. She is the greatest debtor nation in the history of the world. She has accumulated more debt just in this lifetime. This is going to be good. And she has accumulated more debt in this lifetime, in the last 100 years, than the entire globe has. And what I mean by that is, check this out. Even if all of the people on the planet, all of the nations on the planet, hold on one second. Call me when you get settled in, okay? Have a nice day. Love you. Be safe. My wife is leaving for work. And my wife, I got to tell her good night. All right? Anyway, even if all of the nations got together and put together their GDP, it would not be enough to extract America from the debt burden that she now is under. That shows you of the ineptitude of the leadership. That shows you the corruption. Listen, when a government is only viable when it serves the purpose of the people. A government is only legitimate when it can secure the interests of the people whom they govern. When they stop securing or seeking to secure the interests of the people whom they govern, they become illegitimate. Do you understand that? I hope you do. All right. So we'll go into a couple clips and a couple, and I want to say this too. It was an article. Where is it? Maybe I can't find that article at this moment. I got it in my emails. I know that much. Okay, listen to this. Remember, we go back to what I was telling you about these crashes. And all of a sudden, out the blue, January 5th, an article comes out and says, U.S. supersonic bomber crashes. Photos circulating online appear to show a fire not far from Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota. A long-range U.S. B-1B Lancer bomber has crashed outside Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota, military officials have said, noting the accident took place as the aircraft wrapped up a training mission. So as it was doing the training mission, it didn't crash. As it was performing the tasks that were needed and that were required of it in the operation that it was performing, it didn't crash. It crashed when it wrapped up and was ready to head back to base. Okay, I'm gonna leave that one on you guys to tell me if you believe that, okay? And if any of you believe that, I got a miracle pill here. And I'm only selling it for $5 million and it'll give you eternal life. Okay? That's all I'm saying. But let's go. I want to go back to something. I want to show you something real quick. Where is it at? Here it is right here. I want you to listen to this right here. This is about 6 minutes. And you know we're talking about General King, I believe that is. He's never met a war or incident with Iran that he doesn't want to go to war about, right? I want you to listen to it. This is from Fox News. Matter of fact, let me play the disclaimer first because I don't want no problems with YouTube. I don't have any problems with Rumble or Odyssey, but I don't want any with YouTube. Okay, so let me play this disclaimer first. Okay, we've played that disclaimer. And that disclaimer should be enough to cover any of the clips that we play, but I'm going to play that disclaimer if need be during the rest of the show, okay, so that we don't have any copyright infringements, anything that they can get me on to suspend me or to violate me. I'm trying to cover all my bases with this because I know what they're doing, okay? So I want you to listen to this, okay? And we're going to address this on the back side of this, all right?
Former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta says we're at real risk of the conflict in the Mideast escalating. Roll tape.
There's no question that that it increases the danger of escalation in the Middle East. The killing of Hamas leader in Beirut obviously raises the specter of Hezbollah doing something in retaliation. So we are at a point where, without question, there is a real danger of escalation in the war in the Middle East.
Retired four-star General Jack Keane joins me now. General, in your opinion, what is the risk of a direct clash between the United States and Iran?
Oh, I think it's minimal, to be frank about it. I also know that former Secretary of Defense Panetta wants us to do more in terms of deterring Iran and taking more aggressive action. So that was a partial representation, you know, of his thought process. I mean, what has happened ever since the October 7th attack, the Iranian-backed militias, all of them, Hezbollah, the ones in Iraq, the ones in Syria, the Houthis, they've all increased their level of violence and conflict operations since the October 7th attack. Why is that? Because they're supporting Hamas and they're supporting Iran's objectives in the region, which are what? Number one, to drive the United States military presence out of the region, and number two, to destroy the state of Israel. So you have to understand strategically what is happening here. Don't get bogged down in the small tactics of it, and understand that the driver here are the Iranians. I applaud the attack that took place in Baghdad to kill an Iranian-backed militia leader. That was the right thing to do. But it will not stop them from attacking, because we're not dealing with the leadership that is behind all of this, and that is Iran. And we have to take them on. And I know you dealt with that previously in a prior segment. And I totally agree with confrontation with Iran. Now, your question is a valid one. If we do that, if we attack Iran's capabilities, will that lead to a war with Iran? My understanding of this for 43 years, looking at Iran's behavior, is that that will likely not happen. Is it a possibility of...
We're going to revisit this, okay? But I had to stop it right there. Man, that was a lot. Woo! Woo! It's a lot to address. He says that, you know, they want to deter Iran. All right? They want to deter. And so let's go to the dictionary real quick. And the reason I do this dictionary stuff is because understanding is golden. Have you ever been in a school class where the teacher asked you a question and it seemed like everybody got it, and you were wondering why you were the one that didn't get that particular answer, and you couldn't figure out why? And you kept saying, man, how is everybody, even the guy back there that never gets it, how is he understanding this and I'm not? So what I do to avoid that for anybody is to give definitions, because definitions gives us meaning, and meaning gives us understanding, and understanding is golden, okay? So the word deter, it's a verb, and it means discourage someone from doing something by instilling doubt or fear of the consequences. Similar, put off, discourage, dissuade, scare off, warn, caution, dishearten, all right? To prevent, stop, put to a stop, avert, nip in the bud, fend off, okay? Now, he said a whole bunch of stuff here. And so I'm going to try to address a little bit before we double back and listen to the rest of it, okay? So he says that he applauded. First of all, he had the wrong country when he said he applauded the bombing that took place in Iraq. Now, there was a bombing in Iraq, okay? Now, why is it that when America or Israel kills somebody, it's justifiable? But when you retaliate, that's an act of terrorism or Islamic extremism. General King is a Christian. Does anybody say that what he is espousing on there is Christian fundamentalism? I'm asking this. He claims he professes to be a Christian. I'm going to say it like that. And yet he is actually advocating the attack on a sovereign nation, on multiple sovereign nations, to advance America's goals of dominating. Now, here's the kicker here. He talks about the Houthis. He talks about Hezbollah. He talks about Hamas. He talks about Syria. And he talks about Iran. And he talks about those are the main drivers of violence. And one of their main goals is to push America out. Now let's stop for a minute. Let's use common sense. The Bible says, come, let us reason together. To reason, you have to use the God-given faculties up here, right? And then you come up with a logical conclusion or estimation, right? Now, where's the violence taking place at? That's number one. Where is the violence taking place? In Palestine, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, and the terrorist attacks in Iran. That's where it's taking place at. So if this is taking place there, by God's given natural law, self-preservation is the first law of nature. Don't they have the right to employ that very basic law of creation? I'm asking. Why is it that America and Britain and everybody else can run roughshod around the world and dictate to others and tell them what they can and can't do? And when those nations say we're going to do what's in our best interest, it becomes a threat. It becomes terrorism. It becomes violence. Does Iran have warships off the coast in the Gulf of Mexico, off the coast, east coast of America, off the west coast, off California's coast? No. What about the Houthis? I don't think so, dude. What about Syria? Nada. Well, what about Hamas? Hamas doesn't even have boats off Palestine. What about Hezbollah? Hezbollah has no navy. And what about Iran? Iraq. Iraq is still under occupation of the US, the UK, and NATO forces. So now, if there's violence there, one has to look. Are these people coming to the United States and bombing and setting up military bases here? No. But we hear it on extreme newscasts that they're coming through the southern borders, right? But what we know for a fact is that the United States has bases all around those entities. And it's trying to dictate to them what they should do in their neighborhood when America resides thousands upon thousands upon thousands of miles away from them. And then when they don't bow to the US and UK and NATO dictates, what happens? The United States sanctions them, then eventually demonizes them through the media, and then eventually tries to overthrow, cause destabilization programs to go into effect where they have terrorists or assets in these nations that hit vital infrastructure and carry out assassination programs. This is something that even the former CIA director said. He said, we lied, we stole, we killed. That's what he said. He said, that's what we do at the CIA. I didn't say this. What is his name? He was the CIA director. Then he was the Secretary of State. Pompeo, I believe that was his name, if I'm not mistaken. Pompeo, or whatever his name. The guy's lost a lot of weight now. All right. He said that was the job, and it's the job of the CIA. So now, if we have the former CIA director and former Secretary of State, because he held both positions, right? Openly stating the object and the motives of the CIA, then we can look back and say, well, the violence is not all of America. It's in those nations. And who said that this is a course of action by the United States? The CIA director said that. So now we say the violence has to be a effect of policy by the West. I mean, common sense tells you that, right? But listen, this is what it is. This is what it is. And don't let anybody tell you anything different. America, and by extension, the UK, they're trying to hold hegemony. Now, I want to go back to something before I go deeper into this. He said they want America out and they want Israel out, right? And then I go back and listen, I'm not in here advocating whether Israel exists or not exists. I'm not in here to offend any religious person. I just ask questions and then I point to you facts. It is up to you to do what you will with those facts, okay? He said they wanted Israel out. Now, let us go with his reasoning. Let us ask a question, a reasonable, logical, fair question. How did Israel get there in the first place? Because we know prior to 1947, that was Palestine. Right? Now check this out. France, the UK, because they talked about a British mandate. Who in the hell mandated Britain to rule Palestine. Huh? Let's go to something real quick. The word mandate, according to the dictionary, is a noun. It means an official order or commission to do something. Instruction, directive, direction, decree, command, order, authority, approval, acceptance, ratification, endorsement, sanctions. Now, with all of that known about the word mandate, who in the hell gave Britain the mandate to rule Palestine and then balkanize Palestine and bring an entire people into Palestine and remove the Palestinians and then say this is another nation? I'm asking. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about reality. I know some of you will be butthurt for a minute. We're not going to stick on this, but I got to address these things, because if you don't address these things, they fester. You remove an entire people, you, France, and the United States. Now, here's the kicker. We see their hands in Palestine, in the uproar of violence across occupied Palestine in that area, right? We know Britain said it had a mandate for that area. So we see crisis there. Now let us go up to Syria, okay? Let's go up to Syria and to Lebanon, all right? Both of those were part of the same territory. Lebanon was part of Syria. Who balkanized Syria and made that country called Lebanon? France. Now, who balkanized the Middle East into these fiefdoms and these sheikdoms and stuff with some of these corrupt leaders? United States, France, and Britain. So now, when we look at that, the base of what started the stuff, we understand why they're over there continually to try to maintain these sheikdoms, these fiefdoms, and these small outposts of American empire, of British empire, of Western domination. Right? Because and then when 600 of them fly to America, we got to watch out. Those are terrorists. What the hell you mean terrorists? If 600 of them terrorists, what about the 3,000 U.S. soldiers on the soil of Iraq? What about the thousands of CIA and alphabet agency troops on those grounds also? You see, what I'm trying to break down is this mentality of American exceptionalism, British exceptionalism, Western exceptionalism, and show you that when you put the mirror up to empire, empire has a very ugly face. And that's why I never want you to hold that mirror up to them. Because when they look in that mirror, they got something ugly looking back at them. Okay? That's reality. So let's now go back to King, okay? I want to restart this. I want you to listen to what King has to say, or what this has to say.
Former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta says we're at real risk of the conflict in the Mideast escalating. Roll tape.
There's no question that that it increases the danger of escalation in the Middle East. The killing of a Hamas leader in Beirut obviously raises the specter of Hezbollah doing something in retaliation. So we are at a point where, without question, there is a real danger of escalation in the war in the Middle East.
Retired four-star General Jack Keane joins me now. General, in your opinion, what is the risk of a direct clash between the United States and Iran?
Oh, I think it's minimal, to be frank about it. I also know that former Secretary of Defense Panetta wants us to do more in terms of deterring Iran and taking more aggressive action. So that was a partial representation, of his thought process. I mean, what has happened ever since the October 7th attack? The Iranian-backed militias, all of them, Hezbollah, the ones in Iraq, the ones in Syria, the Houthis, they've all increased their level of violence and conflict operations since the October 7th attack. Why is that? Because they're supporting Hamas and they're supporting Iran's objectives in the region, which are what? Number one, to drive the United States military presence out of the region, and number two, to destroy the state of Israel. So you have to understand strategically what is happening here. Don't get bogged down in the small tactics of it, and understand that the driver here are the Iranians. I applaud the attack that took place in Baghdad to kill an Iranian-backed militia leader. That was the right thing to do. But it will not stop them from attacking, because we're not dealing with the leadership that is behind all of this, and that is Iran. And we have to take them on. And I know you dealt with that previously in a prior segment. And I totally agree with confrontation with Iran. Now, your question is a valid one. If we do that, if we attack Iran's capabilities, will that lead to a war with Iran? My understanding of this for 43 years, looking at Iran's behavior, is that that will likely not happen. Is it a possibility? Of course, there's a possibility of it, but we shouldn't let that possibility hamstring us when the facts don't suggest that they would. Why not? Because the whole basis, Stuart, for the proxies, and it's been a brilliant strategy for them since the early 1980s, is to have the proxies do the fighting so they don't have to be involved. They know full well if they get into a direct confrontation with the United States, in other words, they're willing to escalate if we attack them and take us on. If they're willing to do that, they know they're going to lose their regime. That's a war that they cannot win. And everything Iran is doing is in their national interest to preserve their regime. That's why they want a nuclear weapon, and to drive the United States out of the region. That is what is going on here. And to continuously avoid confrontation with them invites more aggression. And you've been documenting it here week after week after week.
Yep. How far should we go? Should we attack Iranian oil installations? Should we attack their nuclear installations? That would be an act of war.
Well, anytime you're firing a shot at an adversary, that's an act of war. So, I mean, I wouldn't underscore it the way you do. I think we would conduct a limited, measured attack on Iran. It would... not an all-out act of war where we're hitting multiple military bases at the same time. We're taking down their headquarters in Tehran. We're destroying their entire infrastructure, something you saw us do in Baghdad. That's really an act of war. This would be a limited attack. And the Central Command that oversees the region, they have a target list of what to do here. My bias is the IRGC Quds Force is overseeing and directing these proxies. I would go after their training base, IRGC training base, some of their military bases, or even their headquarters, and focus it that way, because that's in the chain of command of what is happening. But can you go after the oil fields? Yes. Okay. Could you go after the nuclear enterprise? That would involve a much more complicated operation. I doubt seriously we would do anything on that level of scale.
Well, General,
but yes, we should take them on.
This is strong stuff, General, but let me just transfer our attention for a second to the IDF, to Israel. The IDF withdrawing some troops from Gaza. Can you tell us why they're doing this?
So now, that's a lot to unpack, isn't it? But you got the right one. Hey, because I got the luggage right here, and I'm opening it up right now so we can unpack. All right? So check this out. He said that he implored the killing. He agreed with the killing of a leader from another state or another group on foreign soil. First of all, I want everybody to understand something. That if you were to kill a leader, say for instance, and I'm giving you a hypothesis, and we're just going to imagine for a minute. Just say, for instance, that Sergei Lavrov was in Kazakhstan, right? Kazakhstan, one of the former Soviet republics. And the U.S. had a limited strike on Kazakhstan. First of all, there would be a declaration of war on Russia because they are treaty bound to defend each other. Second, but besides that, and they took out Lavrov. Do you think that Russia would turn and walk away and say, "Oh, we don't want confrontation, America. They may be too strong." And no. By international law, a declaration of war. Check this out. Not just on Russia, but it's on Kazakhstan too. Not just because they are treaty bound, but because the act took place on foreign soil, on a independent sovereign state soil. So when you attack Russia on that soil, you also attack the very people who are indigenous to that soil. Do you understand? So Keene is not being straight with you all. He's telling you all this hoopla. Well, let's go. Let's address some of the stuff that he said, because I was just jotting down a couple words. All right. He says that he thinks that if they attack Iran, at a minimum, Iran would not respond. And let me tell you something. This goes back to something I told you on one of the live shows when I told you guys I kind of fault Russia's leadership for the escalation by the West. And I told you why. Because as long as you let the bully sock you, push you around, intimidate you, and threaten you, guess what? It emboldens the bully. And the bully will do more and more and more and become more and more and more aggressive, right? So everything that Joe Biden said, "Oh, we can't send to Ukraine because that would probably have us in the World War III." Guess what happened? When they started sending little shipments of it and Russia didn't respond with all-out force, the United States did some more. Britain did some more. They even attacked the Kerch Bridge. And there's proof that these were British special forces that were embedded and helped attack the Kerch Bridge. Because Russia was continually talking about, well, just don't attack mainland Russia. And then now look where we are. Belgorod is being attacked. If you give that bully 1 foot, he's going to take over your whole yard. All right. So now let's turn our attentions to Iran. Why is Keene making his assessment in such a way? Because he says that history tells us that if we attack Iran, they won't confront us because they want to maintain their regime and their government. This is what he said. He said history tells us. Why? Why did he say that? Because Israel was bombing Syria and over the course of a year or two has killed mid-level and high-level Iranian Revolutionary Guards. And there was no open response militarily to that. And then the United States had taken the pleasure of killing the second most powerful and most influential person in Iran, General Soleimani. And all Iran did was pummel 2 or 3 U.S. military bases in Iraq. Now, I want to flip that for a second. Do you think, now, because this was under Donald Trump when that happened, do you think that if Iran had carried out an assassination against the vice president of the United States at the time, Mike Pence, do you believe that all America would do would strike 3 military bases in Iran? Huh? Or just strike an Iranian camp in Syria? See, the more you let the bully get the confidence, the more the bully ignores your national interests and then they don't see clear. So they miscalculate on your position and on your resolve. So let's look here. Let's see. He says this right here. Iranian-backed militias all increased their attacks since October 7th, right? Right? He must have a little amnesia or Alzheimer's. The escalation was done by the West through the United States stealing wheat, oil, gas, and corn from Syria and bombing Syrian militias in Syria and bombing Iraqi militias in Iraq and trying to assassinate Iranian revolutionary guards in both countries, and assassination programs going on in Lebanon. That was left out of his assessment. So he put the blame on Iran. But here is the kicker. Let's just give credence to everything that he said. Is Iran in West Asia or the Middle East? I'm talking about the geographical location of Iran. Is it in West Asia / the Middle East? Yeah. Now let's ask a question. Is Britain's geographical location in West Asia or the Middle East? Is France? It's the United States geographical location in West Asia or the Middle East. Well, let's look at this. Are any NATO nations geographical location in West Asia or the Middle East? 1. Turkey. Outside of Turkey, no NATO nations reside in West Asia or the Middle East. So if Iran cannot pick up its geographical location and take it somewhere else, and America has bases all around Iran and all through the Middle East or West Asia, who is the aggressor? Huh? In bizarro world, up is down, down is up, in is out, and out is in, right? That's in King's mind. But let's address something else. He says, those militias, including Iran, have 2 goals. Push U.S. forces out of the Middle East and destroy Israel. Now, we've already discussed the Israel part, so we won't digress and go back over that part right there, what he said. We're going to push the U.S. out of the Middle East. Okay? Why is she there? Question. Why is she there? And why must she have so many bases? And why does she talk belligerent to the people who live in that neighborhood? And why does she try to force her will and her way on people who live thousands of miles away, who have a longer cultural history than she does? Why? And then when they reject it, they are the aggressors. Now, I want you to think of this, the thinking of these people. In Afghanistan, the Taliban were the terrorists. Think about that. In Pakistan, the Pakistanis were the terrorists. In Iraq, the Iraqis were militias and insurgents. In Syria, the Syrians are terrorists, insurgents, and militias, Iranian-backed militias, right? But America, the UK, and her so-called coalition forces are all legitimate in Syria, in Iraq, in Pakistan, Afghanistan. How is that? How can you square that? With common sense, how can you square that? So you come thousands of miles away, illegally occupy my land, take control of my resources, and I'm fighting you to get my land and my resources back, and I'm a terrorist and an insurgent and a militia? Come on. I'm telling you, it is absolutely crazy. Then he says this right here. I know you haven't heard talk like this. For those of you who may be new to the show, you don't hear your favorite channels talk like this. You hear them talk a little bit like this, but they don't go in like I go in, because I don't have a financial interest in this. All I'm looking for is fairness, justice, the things that we are all given under God's laws: freedom, justice, and equality, and fairness. When you apply that to all, then you can see everything in its true capacity, in its true light. Don't think just because I reside in America, oh, I'm American and everything that the American government does is great and benign. Nah, that ain't how it flies. Okay? That's not how it flies. When you're wrong, you're wrong. So look, he goes on and says, he agreed with the commentator that the U.S. must attack Iran, must confront Iran in that area. Now, where's that area again? Where's that area? Huh? He's talking about in West Asia, the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, the Gulf of Aden, the Red Sea, all of these, the Arabian Sea, right? The Indian Ocean. All of those areas close to Iran, close to the Yemeni nation. All of those areas there. The Iranians, the Yemenis, are being belligerent because they are trying to keep their territorial integrity, their resources, and their independence, and they're fighting like hell to maintain it. And check this out. Here's something for the kicker. He gave us a list of Iranian militias, and they're all working together, and they're all backing Hamas to fight Israel. And that's a bad thing, he says. But what about the European nations? What about the UK? What about the US? Aren't they all working and supplying Israel with weapons and political cover and finances? How is it that you can do it and it's right and we can't protect our brother? If we get a slingshot, it's wrong, but you can have 1,000 nuclear weapons. Man, if you don't get out of here with this foolishness, come on now, everybody, common sense here. Iranian nuclear program. That's why they want the bomb. See, that was a misrepresentation, and he threw that out there deliberately. He knew that it has been confirmed that there was no military component to Iran's nuclear program. It had been verified by the IEA that Iran had no military component to its nuclear program. So he, being a general, threw that out there. That shows you his integrity because he willfully and openly lied. And he used that as a point, as a red herring, to justify his other statements that followed, to attack Iran, to confront Iran. You're telling me, hey, I haven't served in the military, and you're telling me I know that Iran didn't have a military component and he was a high general and he doesn't know that? Man, stop this. Stop playing with the people's intelligence. Stop it. I'm going to get to the chat. I see y'all bouncing in the chat. Keep it going. So he says, but we'll do a limited attack, a limited strike, and on a few bases. In Iran, history says Iran won't hit back. See, because Iran did not use its rights under international law to declare war against the United States when America took out Soleimani. America was feeling, they put out feelers to see if Iran would respond militarily. Now, just like King's mind, the other people are feeling that Iran doesn't want it. Look what happened with the general over in Syria, because Iran only talked about hitting back. Guess what happened the following day? Boom, boom, boom. All across the Middle East, you have covert operations underway, taking out or trying to take out key leaders and key drivers of these militias, as the US say, and these armies and stuff. Because Iran didn't react. The same thing with Russia. Russia is in the position that Russia is in because Russia didn't react as strongly as it should have when dealing with the empire. One thing you must understand is that the empire will not yield. You understand that? Once you get that in your mind, your perspective change. Right? I'm going to show you how the empire won't yield. We're going to do a history lesson. I'm going to go back 45, 50 years, and then we're going to come up to this very day to show you how the empire does not yield. It does not matter who's in office. It does not matter whose administration is running the government. What matters is the drive to push their policies on everybody else. And let me tell you something. 40, 50 years ago, Libya was the poorest country in the world. I think the literacy rate was between 3 and 5%, right? And all of the wealth was kept in the West. The West was still in the wealth. And then the so-called government or king, he enjoyed the rest, while the people were living in the desert and they were living in poverty-stricken areas, illiterate. Remember, I told you that's what governments do. They want to keep you ignorant and illiterate so that you can't challenge their rule. So here, there was a coup that took place, a bloodless coup with Muammar Gaddafi and some of the mid-level leaders, because he wasn't a general, he was a colonel. That's why they call him Colonel Gaddafi. And some of them got together and they saw the condition of their people. And they saw the money being siphoned out of Libya. And they saw the predicament of their people, and it was hurting them. And because Gaddafi was a great admirer of the great leader, Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, he looked at that example and he went and instigated a coup against the leadership because they were not benefiting the masses of the people. And then when he got into office, one of his first acts was to remove the U.S. base. The U.S. had the largest base in that area, in Libya. I want you to understand this, okay? I told you I'm going to give you a little history lesson on this, okay? I just look this way. I just look this way. I'm not dumb by any means, okay? So, Muammar Gaddafi and the new leadership demanded Britain and the rest of Italy, all of them, pick up and go. If you're going to deal with us, you're going to deal with us on an equal footing, and you're not going to siphon off all of our wealth. Now, I want you to understand something, because there's a perception in the West of Muammar Gaddafi being a dictator. Okay, there's a perception, so we're going to dispel that with this. Okay. So over the years, remember what I told you, it was the poorest nation, or one of the two poorest nations on the planet prior to the coup. 30 years, 40 years later, it became the most prosperous nation on the Mediterranean. And what I mean by the Mediterranean, there are European nations that reside on the Mediterranean. According to the United Nations, the living standard of Libya was better than most of those nations. And the literacy rate went from 3 to 5% to 98% literacy rate. He demanded that the people learn, and they learned the Constitution. So the government wouldn't be able to take them and exploit them. This is something. See, this has everything to do with today. I'm bringing you up to speed, because sometimes we have to review the past to bring us up to speed to where we are right now. So listen, remember what I told you about that military base of the United States? They never forgave Gaddafi for that. They never forgave him. And all kind of plans came out saying that the United States had put into play over a long period of time a plan to finally remove Gaddafi. So it was more than just what you saw in Benghazi. Okay? This was revenge from the empire. And so they used France as the face, but we knew the power was America. And what they did, and what all Western nations do when they want to subjugate another nation, they go in with aid and with promises. And then they go throughout the country and find any sign or semblance of dissatisfaction. And what they do is nurture that dissatisfaction and give it legs, so that at a later date, when they call upon that dissatisfaction, they can use that as a front or a cover to put in motion their plans of overthrow, war, and domination. So as Libya prospered, the United States and Britain made all kinds of attempts to vilify them, talking about they shot down his plane so that they could steal the assets. You know what they're doing with Russia right now, stealing assets. That's what they were doing. And so Russia's not the first one to have this done on them. Okay? And I know this is a little long. Just bear with me, okay? Because you need to know this. Because it connects right with what Keen is talking about and what everybody else is talking about. But they're leaving out the vengefulness of the empire. So Muammar Gaddafi built up a healthcare system where you didn't need to pay for it. That you, for every married couple, they got a house, $50,000 stipend, and you got to check. You as a citizen got to check revenue from the oil and gas sales of Libya, and you got to choose whether or not you wanted to go to university or college in Libya or abroad. And if you chose abroad, then the Libyan state would pay for that and pay for your housing and your expenses while you were abroad. Right? They don't tell you that. Guess what else? Food was low price. And if you could not afford the food at the time, they had food banks. And guess what else? Water and energy was free. That's a dictator. That's a tyrant that did that, according to the West, right? But that's the face that they wanted to put on him so that they could legitimize their plans of overthrow. Prior to the overthrow of Gaddafi, the United Nations was about to give him an award for raising the living standards to such a high degree of the people in such a short amount of time. The United States, France, and the UK went to the UN and demanded that they put that on hold because it would interfere with their plans to wage war against Libya. If you think I'm lying, go look it up. Because if he would have received the UN award, it would have dispelled all this notion about a tyrant, a dictator, and a brutal man. But they had to because they wanted to divide the spoils of Libya. And America wanted to get that base back that was taken from her. And let me tell you something. She let her plans go a little bit in the news. There was a movie, No Way Out. For those of you who may not, go look at this if you think I'm lying. I was the first one who ever talked about it. When I was on radio, I talked about this over a decade and some ago. There was a plan. They had a movie called No Way Out, featuring and starring Ray Liotta, the late Ray Liotta. And in this plan, he went to a prison concentration island or whatever, and he would have flashbacks of what took place. And Benghazi kept coming up. And in this Benghazi flash, there was an uprising instigated by unknown forces that caused these people to rise up against the government, and then the United States and the rest of them intervened in it. I think this movie came out in the 80s. What happened in Benghazi? And what happened after the uprising? And what happened to the leader of Libya? They have this stuff in their head. The empire is vengeful, whether you want to accept that or not. Okay? That is the truth. So Mr. King is not giving you all the truth. I'm going to tell it to you like it is, whether you like it or not. Okay? And let's go further. And if you think I'm lying, go look at the movie No Way Out, starring Ray Liotta. It's not all the way down the line in the movie. Just like the United States when they loved bin Laden. Because bin Laden was their man. Bin Laden was a product of Zbigniew Brzezinski. You can pull it up on the internet, him hugging bin Laden and saying that this is a man of peace when he was fighting against the Soviets or the Russians. Right? The United States loved the Taliban until the Taliban told them that that pipeline could not go through Afghanistan without them getting a good piece of the revenues from that. And then all of a sudden we have a 911. And then the Taliban becomes terrorists. But in the Rambo movie, go look at Rambo. I don't know if it's 3 or 2. They have so many Rambos. At the end of the movie, Sylvester Stallone thanks the Mujahideen of Afghanistan. Who are the Mujahideen of Afghanistan? The Taliban. Go look at it. I'm not making this up. See, I give you proof. I don't just talk just to be talking. I give you proof. Other people, they don't give you proof. They give you their opinions. And then you'll listen to them. And you'll try to discredit me when I'm offering proof. So let's go further. He says, Iran, if we hit Iran in a limited strike, Iran won't hit back, right? And then this is what he says. This part is projection right here. He says, to continually avoid confrontation with Iran only invites constant attacks and aggression. That's what he said. Well, check this out. Who avoided confrontation when their generals and their colonels were hit in Syria? It was Iran. It wasn't America. Who avoided confrontation when some of their RGC was assassinated on Iranian soil by U.S., UK, and Israeli operatives? It was Iran. Who avoided confrontation when the second most powerful and influential man in Iran was assassinated on Iraqi soil? It wasn't America, it was Iran, right? And what did that lead to? Each time those events happened, what did it lead to? More aggression by the empire. So that's projection. That's projection. He says, so we need limited strikes. Okay? These people have never met a war that they did not like. But the problem with this is now the empire does not have the wherewithal to impose a will anymore. Times have changed. Keene is looking at this from a 1990s view. He's not looking at the reality of today. You understand? We already see that the UK is undermanned and understaffed and underarmed. We already see that the United States can't meet its recruiting goals and have to pull back an aircraft carrier group because they don't have enough people on there. We already see that there's a budget crisis and a debt crisis that is not only mounting in the empire, it is mounting in the British Empire. It is mounting across Europe. So how in the hell can you effectively fight a major war against a power, a regional power that has sophisticated where to do unacceptable damage to you? Huh? General King should know that. I'm not a strategic thinker. I'm not a military man, but I know that. So I'm sure General King should know that. And shout out to CC. I see her in the building. I didn't see her. I was looking right at her and didn't even see her. If she was a snake, she would have bit me. But listen, they are viewing the world through the lenses of 1990 or 1980, when America considered herself as a hyperpower and everybody was beneath her. They weren't just beneath her, they were levels beneath her. And that's no longer the case. With the outbreak of new technologies and asymmetrical warfare, that's not the case anymore. All right? What did it say? Incognito said Benghazi flashbacks. Must have eaten the brown acid. And he says also, the people started reading the Bin Laden letter, so they pulled it down. Of course they did. I'm not making this stuff up. Yeah. Let's see. I see you, Betty. I got you. I believe in a higher spirit, but in my own way and in my own form of faith. I got you, Betty. I got you. And he says, good points. You cannot ignore the reality. And if it makes one butt hurt, that is them. That is on them. Reality doesn't care. Absolutely. Matter of fact, let me see if I can pull that up here. What is going on right here?
Former Defense Secretary Leon Panetta says we're at real risk of the conflict in the Mideast escalating. Roll tape.
Allow me to put up.
There's no question that that it increases the danger of escalation in the Middle East.
To know that I didn't hit that button. That wasn't me. So the people that are now getting their butt hurt now, they're doing that. I didn't do that one. But let me try to put up a comment real quick. Of Medi. Boom, right here. Right there. Good points. You cannot ignore the reality. And if it makes one butt hurt, that is on them. Reality doesn't care. Absolutely. Mic drop moment. Boom. I'm telling you. Listen, as we go further, and I want to once again say, hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. And if you have subscribed on YouTube, please go over to Odyssey and especially Rumble and subscribe to the Red Pill Diaries. Okay? I would really appreciate that. Also, like, subscribe, and share. Let's beat the algorithm. Let me pull this down for a minute. I want to play something for you all. All right? So listen to this right here. This is from about a week or so ago. I've had these things on my dash, but I waited to play some of them. So I want you to listen to this here. Okay, this is about 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
A U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham has called for a direct attack against Iran. He asserted that Tehran supports militant groups that are hostile to the country, so American forces should, quote, blow it off the map.
Without Iran, there are no Houthis. The Houthis are completely backed by Iran. I've been saying for 6 months now, hit Iran. They have oil fields out in the open. They have the Revolutionary Guard headquarters you can see from space. Blow it off the map. If you really want to protect American soldiers, make it real to the Ayatollah. You attack a soldier through a proxy, we're coming after you.
Well, Mr. Graham's remarks come after repeat.
So I stopped right there. We're going to revisit this because I only played 40 seconds of that. We're going to revisit that in just a second. Now, he's talking about attacking Iran, blowing stuff off the map, right? But I thought America was not the aggressive one. Remember, let's go to something. Because we go back to General Keane also, where he says, well, hitting a couple of airfields and doing such and such is not really an act of war. You know, if we go all in, then that's an act of war. Well, by that measure, then Iran can come over here and do the same thing to you. Or maybe Russia say, hey, if that's America's line of thinking, let me strike a couple bases in the U.S. And then when they get up in arms and say, hey, listen, one of your generals said that's not an act of war. See how they would take that if the shoe was on the other foot. But according to I put this in the Google engine, and I said meaning of act of war. Okay, you can put it in there too. And it says it's a noun, and it means an aggressive act, usually employing military force, which constitute an immediate threat to peace. Now, I don't know how you think of it, but if Medi has a problem with me, and Medi says, you know what, I'm going to go stand on this lawn, and I'm gonna just chuck bricks through the window. I'm not going to go in his house because then he might think that I really want to fight him. I'm just going to chuck bricks through the window, and maybe I'll hit one of his children. And then we won't be fighting, and we'll leave it at that. If you believe that, man, I got a lot of things to tell you. You're going to say, first of all, you're in that region illegally. I want to add. And you're in that region through the threat of force. And then a nation that resides in that region, you say, well, we want a limited strike. They won't retaliate because it's not really an act of war. How many of you in the chat, how many of you watching this believe that? But that's what they're selling you. That is what they're selling you. When an act of war means an aggressive act. If you lob a missile in my city or in my country, that's an aggressive act. When America put this thing out saying that 19 hijackers All right. 19 hijackers commandeered some planes, barely knowing how to fly, right? And ran them into some buildings and destroyed these buildings that were made to be resilient against planes crashing, right? Right. And they said that this was a declaration of war, and we don't want to talk to anybody, either hand over the people we say, or we're going to bomb your country. But that was only a couple of planes, 3 planes. So you're telling me that that was a declaration of war, but to use your aircraft carriers and your military bases that are legally residing in an area that's thousands of miles from your home, close to this person that you hate, and then you use that to strike in their territory and kill their people and destroy their infrastructure, that's not to be taken as an act of war. Oh, if we wanted to act of war, we would just go all in. How many of you buy that? How many of you buy that? Because I'm here to tell you, that's a bunch of bull. You know what I'm talking about. You know, but they know they have the talking heads that go out there and they'll sell you anything. And if you see it on Fox, and then you see it on CNBC, and you see it on ABC and CNBC and whatever the other ABC networks or alphabet networks, over and over and over and over again. And then you start hearing some of the same lines in some of the so-called alternative media. Guess what? You'll start accepting that. Well, maybe. Like America's trying to sell you on miniature nukes. Well, they're strategic nukes. They're not really nuclear weapons. We can use them on the battlefield. And Russia said, now, if you use or you allow Ukraine to use suitcase or battlefield nukes, then this is we might as well just go to World War III, because we're taking out everybody. So Russia didn't see it as a slight bomb. Russia saw it as a threat to its survival. You're telling me Iran doesn't see what America's doing when she's surrounding her with all of these military bases? You're telling me Iran doesn't see that her survival is at stake? Huh? And one of the reasons Iran could have been allowing the bully to continue is that they weren't militarily fully prepared at the moment. And they were just biding their time, the same way as China was when America struck a Chinese embassy decades ago and said they made a mistake, even though the Chinese had gave them the location of the embassy and they had geostrategic positioning of that embassy. But America struck that embassy to prove a point to China at the time that if we wanted to do this, we'd do it. And then China humbly bowed their head, bided their time, and now they're on par with America, and America wouldn't dare strike a Chinese embassy at this moment. You see what I mean? Maybe Iran is employing that strategy because that's the only one that could make sense. Because to allow somebody to constantly kick you in the face, slap your wife, rape your children, is tantamount to being a party to it. You understand? Do you understand? Man, I'm telling you. Let me get something real quick. Let me show you something. You guys give me a second as I pull up something. Give me a second. All right. I want to pull this up real good for you, okay? So let me see, which one should I pull up, because all of these look good. Let me go to images and see which one looks the best. All right. Give me a second. All right. I think I'll go to this one. All right. And let me see if I can pull it up on the page that is on, so it'll be bigger. Give me 1 second, everybody. I just want you to, because if we don't see these things like this, we can never understand Iran's rational moves and thinking about, hey, war is inevitable with the United States. I want to show you something. I'm going to pull something up for you all, okay? So bear with me. Bear with me. All right, share screen. All right, pull this up. Something will be popping up on my screen in just a second. All right? And I want you to pay close attention to it. All right. It should be up right now. All right. Now let me see if I can make that a little bigger for you. Let me see. Turn off notifications. Not now. Let me try to make this a little bigger for you. Okay. Can I make it bigger? Ah, yes. Yes. Make it bigger. And so I want you to look at this. This here is the map of West Asia or the Middle East. All right. Look at Iran. In the center of all of those U.S. flags, that's Iran, right? All around Iran, those U.S. flags are military bases of the United States, Great Britain, and coalition forces. Now, here's the kicker. That list has not been updated. They don't show the multiple bases in Syria. They have at least 24 in Syria. They don't show the training facilities in Iraq. They don't show the training facilities in Saudi Arabia. They don't show the training facility that they have in Turkmenistan or in Afghanistan, because they still have one there, or the one in Pakistan. Now, who wants war? And who's the aggressive one? Look at that. Now, I want to go to something. Let me get this off the screen for a second. All right. Let me take this down 1 second. I'll write this down. Now I want to go to something else. All right. Give me a second. Because I'm about to pull up another map, okay? So, because I want you to see this in the right manner. I don't want anybody to come to you afterwards and say something crazy, okay? All right, let's see if that's a good map. No, that's a small map. Let me go back. I'm trying to pull up a big map for you all. Holy, maybe this one is a good one here. I don't think this one is. Concept draw. Let's see. No, that's small. They don't have any good maps here. In stock. This is small. All right. I'm trying to pull it up. Y'all give me a second. Let's see if I can bring this up on the screen. Let's see if that's big enough. Hold on, everybody. We do this live on the air. Ah, yeah. Boy. Yeah. All right. Let me bring this up on the screen. All right. I'm sharing the screen. I want you to see this map. And I want you to contrast it with the map that you just saw. Okay? It should be up on the screen at any moment. All right? Let's get it. You see that map? This is a map of North America. All right? You see mainland America, you see Mexico at the bottom, you see Canada at the top, and you see Alaska to your far, at least to my far left, up at the top. Now, show me where there is an Iranian military base that's surrounding America or Canada or Mexico. I want you to show me that, because maybe I'm missing something. Show me where there's an Iranian military base bordering or somewhere near the heartland of America. You can't see one. You don't see one, do you? Of course you don't see one. So now, when we contrast those two maps, where we see no Iranian bases, nowhere near North America, and then when we look at the military bases of America around Iran, with some not even mentioned, now that gives us a proper perspective of who is the aggressor and who is belligerent for war. Is that not right? So now we can look at that clip again and understand something better. So let's go to this.
U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham has called for a direct attack against Iran. He asserted that Tehran supports militant groups that are hostile to the country, so American forces should, quote, blow it off the map.
Without Iran, there are no Houthis. The Houthis are completely backed by Iran. I've been saying for 6 months now, hit Iran. They have oil fields out in the open. They have the Revolutionary Guard headquarters you can see from space. Blow it off the map. If you really want to protect American soldiers, make it real to the Ayatollah. You attack a soldier through a proxy, we're coming after you.
Well, Mr. Graham's remarks come after repeated assertions by Washington that Iran was involved in attacks on commercial ships and U.S. troops in the Red Sea. Tehran has denied the allegations. The United States has created a multilateral security mission in the region to tackle what it says is an ongoing Houthi threat from Yemen. Well, earlier we spoke to a geopolitical expert and scholar at the University of Tehran. He says Washington will play it safe, as a direct confrontation with Iran would have serious global repercussions.
All wars are good for the U.S. military-industrial complex, but I think it's pretty clear that the United States under Obama, under Bush, under Trump, it never struck Iran itself because they knew that the retaliation would be swift and severe. Iran today is much more powerful than it was back then, and the United States has many more problems today than it had back then. So obviously, any strike against Iran by the regime in Washington would have severe consequences. All we have to do is look at the Persian Gulf. U.S. bases on the other side of the Persian Gulf are all vulnerable, and those regimes that host U.S. bases would be seen as hostile by Iran if there are strikes from the United States, and therefore their infrastructure, including their oil and gas assets, would be all legitimate targets. So if the Americans want to carry out a strike against Iran, that would mean a global economic crisis like we've never seen before.
So I'm usually 100% on with Mohammed Barandi, but here he makes a mistake. He says that Bush, Clinton, Obama, and Trump never struck Iran. That is not absolutely true. They did carry out a clandestine operation in Iran. But here's something else. Trump, whether he struck Iran on his soil or struck it in Iraq, he struck Iran because Trump was the president who ordered the assassination of Soleimani. And Trump did something that was so cowardice that nobody talks about. I give Joe Biden the business, right? But I also gotta be fair, and I gotta tell the truth where the truth is. Trump asked for a meeting. He told his military advisors to ask for a meeting with Soleimani over in Iraq so that Soleimani can hash out a plan for them to fight against Daesh or ISIS. Soleimani agreed to come over there to give them a plan because Soleimani had helped the United States out of a quagmire before. Most people don't know that, a military quagmire. And upon his arrival, when he was in his motorcade, Trump ordered the assassination of the man he asked to come over there to help with ISIS. That's cowardice, bro. I don't care how. If it was Obama, I would tell you it was cowardice. If it was Joe Biden, I would tell you it was cowardice. It's Trump, and that was cowardice. That was an act of cowardice. I don't care how you spin it. That was an act of war also. Now, Naeem says these people in the administration have no truth in them. It doesn't matter which administration. You're right. They're going to lie. I call them rugs because they lie so much. Okay? You know how you lie a rug down? Yeah, that's how the administration go. Nermeen says this. U.S. motto is don't do as I do, do as I say. Imagine if other countries had this attitude towards the rest of the world. This is what I'm saying. You get it. You're getting it. America believes that, see, this is why there has to be a judgment. Listen to me good. Because everybody can see that the world is on the wrong path. Everybody can see that the system that it has been propagated is inherently unjust. Everybody can see that the leadership in the Western world is corrupt as hell, right? And everybody knows that if the leadership of the West and the governments of the West are allowed to continue, even if you bring in something new, they're going to change it back to the old. You can't put new wine in old wineskin lest the wineskin break and the wine spill out. So what they will do, and that's the scripture, okay? But I just said to some of you. So what they will do is repackage what they already know. How can somebody do something else when all they know is over here? That's why when you have a person that knows nothing but poverty and hardship, knows nothing but betrayal, it is hard to change their views and their mind on something because that's what they've been conditioned to. And so when we look at America's rule and the colonial nations rule and Britain rule, we can say that they have ruled unjustly. Why? We have proof that they have ruled unjustly because the entire world, even their own populations, are now turning against the system and the rulership of these governments. And they are all screaming out for something new. And now America, Great Britain, and the European Union is talking, we need to lead the new. How the hell can you lead the new when you have nothing in your mind but the old? How to exploit, rob, kill, divide, occupy, maim, subjugate. People are screaming out for something fairer and just. And the leadership, see, people look and say, well, if we get rid of this leader, you don't understand that the system itself has been fashioned in such a way that even if you have good intentions, when you get into the system changes those intentions. The system changes your mind and you act according to the system. You go along to get along so that you don't get done in. So not only do the leaders have to be done away with, but the entire system has to be done away with for something new to flourish without obstacles. I know you haven't heard this stuff like this, but it's the truth. That's why you have to have judgment. Why do you think these wars are taking place, everybody? I'm asking you. Do you not know that with every deployment of American power, British power, a colonial nation's power, they become weaker? Because it's an economic burden on their economies. Do you know the more that they choose the military over their populations, the more the populations rebel? Do you know the more they occupy nations and put bases in nations and troops in there, do you know that costs money and upkeep money? Do you know to install leaders and to maintain the leadership, they got to continue to turn the faucet on economically? Look at what is going on in Palestine. What did General King say? And what did these other leaders say a few days ago? America must fund Israel constantly, or else if they turn the spigots off, we see the end of Israel. They have to continue with this, but here's the problem. Debt maturation, or the maturity of your debt, has become so great that you can't escape the ramifications of your irrational, illogical, and unjust policies. So now we see blowback. The rise of BRICS, the global south. We see blowback. Nations using their own national currencies. We see blowback. Nations rising up against colonial powers and colonial occupation and the theft of resources and demanding independence and true sovereignty. That is all a ramification of the policies that were enacted and maintained by the colonial West. This is what I'm telling you. From their own hands shall their doom come. This is what I'm telling you. The debt has milestone that it is incomprehensible to think about how she can pay this off. America has a interest rate that she has to pay on that debt of at least $1 trillion now. $1 trillion. Do you know America could have repaid reparations for slavery? Do you know that America, and I want to throw this in here too for everybody. Do you know that everybody, the Japanese got reparations? You know that? Do you know that the Chinese that were mishandled here got reparations? Do you know that the Jews got reparations, even though, I'm talking about America gave the Jewish people reparations, even though Germany was the cause of their problems. And the only people that never got it was the ex-slaves. Did you know that? And every time it's brought up, it becomes nonsense and pushed to the side and talked down upon. Listen to me good. When you have wronged someone, be it black, brown, red, yellow, or white, just saying I'm sorry is not enough. It's not enough. You kill somebody and go to the court and look at the judge and say, well, judge, I didn't mean to kill him. I mean, I shot him 75 times, but I really didn't mean to kill him. And I apologize. Now, judge, could you go ahead on and hit the gavel, or take the gavel and hit your desk so I can leave? I got an appointment I gotta be at in the morning. How do you think that's gonna work out for you? See, we don't look at these matters. All of this stuff weighs into the collapse of the Western world. Illogical, racist, fascist policies. I'm gonna address it. I don't care if you get mad. I'm gonna address it. Because the only way to right a wrong is to show contrition of heart, and then you have to put actions behind that. You understand? And in America, I want you to think about this. And for a minute now, let's talk now. Let's just talk for a second, okay? And I'm not going to harp on slavery for a minute, but I'm going to say something about this, and I'm going to put something on your mind, and then we're going to go back to these clips, because I want to address these things in their proper perspective, okay? Do you know that the Jews underwent, according to their history in Germany, gas concentration camps? But do you know that for 300 and some years, slaves did that too? But more, they were sold as chattel. Do you know in the legislature, you can go to any legislature, the Virginia House of Legislature, any of those, they used to discuss this. We've got to keep them ignorant so that even when we take the shackles off of them, they can't be independent. Do you know that? In the Virginia House of Delegates, they were discussing this. We have, as far as possible, closed every avenue by which light may enter the slave's mind. That's what they said. And then they said they were going to enact these policies over and over and over again after freeing them. That doesn't, day in and day out, working the fields and for 300 plus years, that don't qualify for some reparations, an apology, a fellowship, something. I'm just saying. Now, it is because the contempt. And check this out. Let's go a little further, because I talk on a lot of issues, and I'm trying to relate this to what's going on with America. She's lost her way. She's lost her way. Because she has, sometimes when you become full of yourself, God removes the things, or he allows you to remove the thing that keeps you grounded. And then you do the dirt to yourself, causing your demise and your fall. Look at how corrupt the nation is. Most people don't even know that there was a coup attempt, I believe, on President Roosevelt. Most people don't even know that. And none of them went to jail. None of them. It was a fascist coup. The same people who prospered and became officials in government and think tanks, they tried to overthrow the government back then. You ain't even know that. Go look it up and see if I'm lying. And their descendants are in power. See, I'm trying to tell you, the corruption is inherent. You understand? What'd you say? America bankrolled. Yeah, see, America bankrolled Germany, which was part of the small hat demise. Fritz talked about all this. I'm sorry, I missed part of that. Let me see. It says and Collie Bean is in the house. Collie Bean says 2024 will be the year where multiple crises all converge in the West, and an epic showdown will occur. I've been saying that since last year before last. They're going to listen to me good. I don't care what the pundits say. I'm telling you facts. I can point and show you where I've led the pack and said certain things, and people disregarded it, and then it happened. Who called out the situation with Israel and Palestine? Me. So don't think that things have changed. There will be an escalation, the likes of which you've never seen in the MENA region in this coming year or so. And there will be bloodshed and plenty of it. And this battle in the MENA region, for those of you who don't know what that acronym is, it is the Middle East and North African region. And when that takes place, it will push America and Britain out of the Middle East and North Africa completely, militarily. Come back here and tell me if I lie. Okay? It's happening. As a matter of fact, we see it. Why do you think America keeps talking about it's Iran that has these militias, and it's Iran, we got to attack, we got to take the head of the stake off, and we got to do this, right? Because those little militias and those little militaries, they looked up to Iran and they saw how Iran withstood the juggernaut sanctions regime for 30 to 40 years. And it's becoming an independent power and can produce its own military hardware. And so those nations that are looking are saying, hey, now it's our time. We don't have to take this anymore. So you have a domino effect. And America does not know how to yield. Therefore, when you have two objects moving in the same direction at the same time, and neither will veer, they both must collide. Right? Common sense, they got to collide. And America is not as strong as she was militarily. She's not as rich as she was economically. She does not have the political capital that she once had, right? And we see these rising tides that are showing us that there's a dramatic change, a paradigm change that is underway, right? And this is why America and the UK and the European nations of NATO are fighting like hell and doing what they're doing to try to destabilize and maintain chaos. Through chaos is what? What do they say? Order. That's their model. That is the Western world. That's Israel's model. That's the US's model. That's Britain's model. Through chaos comes order. So they continue to keep people misinformed, and they continue to push these nations and these people. And now the people are pushing back. And so America and Great Britain and the colonial nations are not as powerful as they once were. And they feel a threat to their power. That's why King says their number one objective is to push American military presence out of the region. That's what he said. He understands that part. He doesn't want to give you the truth, but he understands that part. And when this conflagration takes place, America will have to choose between whether or not she's going to continue in the Middle East or then completely pivot to Asia, because listen, time is of the essence. And when she gets this thing with Iran is going to give her, when they fight, listen to me good. Come back here and tell me, when they fight, Iran is going to give America everything she can handle and a little bit more. Now, I'm not saying Iran will be victorious, but America will limp out of the Middle East. She's not going to be running out smiling because she's going to incur unacceptable damage militarily, because every base in the region can be targeted by Iran. Every ship that America has can be sunk by Iran because of the Chinese missiles, the upgraded Chinese missiles, short sea missiles that China gave to Iran and that Russia now has given to Iran. Well, if you're talking about an air battle, Iran now has the S-350s, those Russian air defense systems. They have the bulk systems. They have Panzer systems. They have their own indigenous systems that showed you their capability when they shot down a U.S. drone on 2 occasions. One occasion they shot it down. On another occasion, they took control of it through their electronic jamming techniques. And it surprised America that Iran was so advanced in those techniques. This is not going to be a cakewalk. This is not going to be a war like when America ran over Saddam Hussein after a 10-year sanctions regime, and Iraq's military was to the brink of collapse anyhow. That's not how this is going to work. And guess what's going to happen? See, America used this Palestine-Israeli conflict to build up her arsenal and her weaponry and her troops and her military prowess in the region. The Mediterranean, the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, and that area right there, right? She did that for that because she is contemplating initiating a strike on Iran. She's contemplating that. But here's the kicker that has a downside. Because if America does that, all hell will break loose, because not only will Hezbollah intervene, not only will Syria intervene, not only will Hamas be forced to intervene, but guess what? All of the fiefdoms and these sheikdoms with all these sheikhs and rulers, these kings and stuff, they're going to be forced to pee or get off the potty, because the people are not with those kings and stuff. Those are U.S. and U.K. and French kings imposed on those people. So they're going to rise up and they're going to demand to join the regional war that's going on, and this will weaken the U.S., the U.K., and Israel even more. As a matter of fact, I think Scott Ritter has said it, that if a regional war takes place, that will be the end of Israel. I think Colonel McGregor even mentioned that also. I've been saying that for the longest, because the makeup and the dynamics have changed in such a way that it will not allow anybody to play the sidelines. It will not allow it. And watch the loyalties of Turkey switch. Listen to me good. Remember this, that Turkey is the second most powerful military in NATO. Remember that, okay? And Turkey already feels like a second-class citizen in NATO. Now think about if hostilities light up across the region. I want you to think about it. This is something that the think tankers and all of these pundits and prognosticators overlook because of imperial hubris. Because they think that they know everything and that they can do any and everything without repercussions or ramifications. But that's not how God created the heavens and the earth. They're going to be brought to account for what you've done. You understand? Even right now, let me talk to you for a minute. Even right now, in the midst of an economic downturn, in the midst of a growing poverty rate, growing homelessness in the UK, the US, and across Europe, they have still shown little. I'm talking about the leadership, okay? They've still shown little to no contrition of heart in dealing with Africa, Latin America, Asia, and West Asia. Have they? Just the other day, Argentina called for Britain, because Britain sent a warship to Argentina's waters, and it's also a warship to Guyana. I believe it. No, was it? Yeah, whatever. But they asked Britain, man, would you please just give us back our island? turn back over the Malvinas Island to us. But imperial hubris won't let that happen right now. See, you're going to have to get whooped a little bit. You know how your mom would tell you something over and over again, and they say, sometimes hard head is the best teacher. Experience is the best teacher. And you thought that you could get over on your parents by lying or doing this. And because you got over a couple times and you're not aware that they knew that you were lying and that you got over, they were just waiting and let it build up. And then when it built up to a certain point, they cut it off and then they got onto you and tore your backside up. That's what's happening with the British Empire. That's what's happening with the American Empire. That's what is happening to the Western world. They're getting their comeuppance right now. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's the truth. They're getting their comeuppance right now. And it's going to get worse. Think about this. The debt situation is not getting better. It's only getting what? Worse. The military environment is not getting better. It's only getting what? Worse. The Western political environment is not getting better. It's getting what? Worse. Now they're even trying to prevent Trump from even being on a ballot. I thought America was the most democratic nation on the planet, where anybody who aspires to be president could be a president. Huh? You see the hypocrisy? You see that? That is the manifestation of defects. God is pushing all that stuff that was held in the back that decades ago people couldn't hear, couldn't see, couldn't comprehend. And the people who spoke on it looked like they were on the outlines, on the out fringes of things, and they were like extremists. And now that's the talk of the day. That's the talk of the day. Because it's become so clear now. But you can see, as other people saw down the wheel of time, telling you, hey, look, these policies right here endanger national security. These policies right here will bring back unwanted retribution. These policies right now will alienate these very people who we're trying to get on our side. If you think America cares about that, China is our largest lender. China is our largest trade partner, her largest investor. And she's talking about pivoting military arms to Asia to confront China militarily. How does that make sense? God said that he would hit them with derision. That's that madness. They've been smitten with madness. They think they're doing right, but every policy initiative that they put in play actually is to the detriment of the nation or the Western world. Nobody can say I'm lying about this. I'm telling you the truth. All one has to do is open up their eyes, ears, and nose and mouth. You can see, smell, taste, and hear it. Right? You know I'm telling the truth. You know I'm always going to come to you with the truth. Right? Because the truth is our best friend. All right? And if you embrace the truth, guess what? You have a good friend indeed. You know what I mean? If you embrace the truth, there can be no greater friend than the truth, because the truth, in essence, is God. And God is good. Right? So on that note, I want to bid you a good day and thank each and every one of you for joining us on the most powerful platform for truth bar none anywhere on God's green earth and on social media. This is your platform for education, elevation, and empowerment. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. Thank each and every one of you for giving me your time. I really am humbled, and I really appreciate it. I go out the same way I come in, with love in my heart for each and every one of you who loves truth. But know that my love will always pale in comparison to the love that my God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true. But above all things, remember this: stay righteous. I love you all. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. We out of here.